Hey everyone. Today we're going to continue in our study of the end times. We are in a short little series going through the tribulation through Matthew chapter 24. It's been a couple weeks, so I want to pick up and continue on where we left off on Matthew 23, now into Matthew 24. So just to quickly remind us what we're doing in these videos is once a month, we are doing a study through the book of Revelation, and there's certain topics, as I said, we will not be covering through the book of Revelation, but are very important to the discussion as we continue to go through that book. And so one of these topics is the tribulation. So I'm going to spend quite a few videos going through the tribulation, different passages that mention the tribulation, like Matthew 24, Daniel chapter 9, and studying through those verse by verse and breaking those down and discussing the different views of how to interpret this text. So the tribulation, just to kind of clear up what is the tribulation, it's a period of time in which terrible, awful things happen on earth. Things like mass destruction, chaos, abominations, rejection of God, persecution of Christians. And the question that's debated among Christians is, how long will this be? And when will it be? And has it happened or has it happened yet? There's all kinds of different ways to approach this passage, or has it happened and will it happen again? That's another thing to even look at. So, but a goal in these videos is to explain these views, help us understand them. But more importantly, as I've been saying as we're going through the Revelation on Thursday nights, is I want us to leave this study with a hope in Christ. I want us to leave more in awe of God and more in awe of Jesus, and for this to draw us deeper in connection with Him, for us to have a deeper reverence for God and His, especially Jesus, in His lordship and in Him as King, and for us to want to serve Him and live for Him. And so that's what I'm hoping is going to happen through the study of Revelation, and even studying through the tribulation here is not for us to debate and fight over these things, but to leave more hopeful for the future and not scared about these things. I understand that many are afraid of this topic as Christians. They don't want to read Revelation because it's scary. It's not when you understand it, and it's not when you understand the main theme of the entire book. So that's my goal. I love studying through this. So today we're going to be in Matthew 24. We're going to be studying through just a section of Matthew 24 to understand the tribulation. Last time we went through Matthew 23. Not going to recap it all. You can go watch it. But essentially, Jesus is in Jerusalem. He's days away from going to the cross, and he's having a conversation with his disciples. He's having a conversation about the signs of the end. And this is what we call the Olivet Discourse. If you watch the last video, remember there's 3 ways to read the Olivet Discourse. You can read it as history. This is the preterist view, meaning past, and it'd be future for when Jesus is speaking about it, but for us reading it, this would be past things. It's a history. There's a futurist view, which means everything in here has not happened yet. It's future even for us today. Then there's the dual fulfillment, where some things would say has been fulfilled and some things have not. So it's kind of like it's some have, some have not, and it's definitely in Scripture throughout prophecy. I pointed this out last time. You can see this happens throughout prophecy. Is that some things, it's the same verse, same line. One thing has been fulfilled in Jesus' first coming, and then the other part will be fulfilled in Jesus' second coming. So you can see how this could even be the same thing in Matthew 24. So let's get right into Matthew 24. Let's read through it. We're going to be reading through verse 1 into verse 14 today. So let's start verse 1. Verse 1 gives the context of Matthew 24, which is very, very important to understanding this entire Olivet Discourse. This context is key to understanding it. Okay, so verse 1, Matthew 24, verse 1 says this: Jesus left the temple and was going away when his disciples came to point out to him the buildings of the temple. So it's a very important context. So what's happening is they're walking by the temple. They notice it's beautiful marble, all the magnificence of the temple. And they're saying, "Look at this temple, Jesus, and look how amazing this is." They pointed him out. So this is just an amazing thing, this temple. And then Jesus lays this on them, his bombshell in a way. Verse 2, but he answered them, "You see all these things, do you not? Truly I say to you, there will not be left here one stone upon another that will not be thrown down. All right. So this is one of the most important details about this whole passage, because next we're going to read about some questions the disciples have about this, which is just said. This is a blow to them. Like what? Like they're marveling at this temple that Jesus is saying it's going to be destroyed, right? It's going to be gone, right? So this is a very important detail. And as we get into the Olivet Discourse, there's going to be some things that we talk about that are like, it's kind of can distract you from this main context. So we got to remember this is where the context is. They're looking at the temple. The context is the temple, okay? So, and Jesus is saying it's going to be destroyed, okay? Then in verse 3, disciples have questions. As he sat on the Mount of Olives, the disciples came to him privately saying, "Tell us when will these things be? And what will be the sign of your coming and of the end of the age?" So they're asking Jesus is saying temple's gonna be destroyed. So they're obviously thinking, when is this going to happen, Jesus? Like, when is this going to take place? And it says, when will these things be? So what are these things, right? They want to know, when is the destruction of the temple going to happen? And then they add in, what is the sign of your coming, and what is the end of the age? The question would be, why do they add these things? Why don't they just ask Jesus, when is the temple going to be destroyed, Jesus? He says it's going to be destroyed. When will it be destroyed? Because they believe if the temple was to be destroyed, it would be the end of the age. Okay? And they also believe this would be the sign of his coming. Like, if the temple is going to be destroyed, Jesus is going to be the one that destroys this temple. So they saw it all as one thing, or at least they thought it would be one thing, one moment where the temple is destroyed. Jesus is the one doing it, and it's the end of the age. So Jesus goes on, verse 4, to explain then, what are the signs? What are the signs of his coming, the end of the age, and these things, the temple being destroyed? Verse 4, Jesus answered them, "See that no one leads you astray. For many will come in my name, saying, I am the Christ, and they will lead many astray. And you will hear of wars and rumors of wars, so see that you're not alarmed, for this must take place, but the end is not yet. For nation will rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there will be famines and earthquakes in various places. But these are but the beginning of the birth pains. Then they will deliver you up to tribulation and put you to death, and you will be hated by all the nations for my name's sake. And then many will fall away and betray one another and hate one another, and many false prophets will rise and lead many astray. And because lawlessness will be increased, the love of many will grow cold. But the one who endures to the end will be saved. And this is the gospel of the kingdom, will be proclaimed throughout the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And then the end will come." All right. So what are the signs of the end? Or Jesus puts it, I love how he puts this, the birth pains. What are the birth pains? Right? They're going to be the sign of the end. And I love how Jesus puts this birth pain, because it's so practical. Like my wife is pregnant right now. She's in her 8th month, almost 9 months. She could have a baby any moment now. And so this is very, very applicable to me right now in my life. Because one thing is, like, it's amazing, a woman carries a baby for 9 months. Right, and as those 9 months go, she gets bigger and bigger and bigger. But as she gets closer to the time of the birth, things start to kind of pick up, right? Like I said, my wife, this last month has been very difficult for her. She's bigger, she has more back pain, she can't bend over. Her sometimes some women's feet swell. Like, all these things happen to you, and then when it gets really close, you start having contractions. You start feeling a lot of pressure down there, like the baby's getting lower, like about ready to come out. And then your water breaks, and then boom, it happens, right? So like you kind of understand, like this, it's slow at first, and then when it gets close to the end, it picks up rapidly. And that's kind of what Jesus is trying to say here, right? So it's that the end of the age will be the very same. There will be signs, but when the day gets closer, the signs will become more and more clear. It become more and more evident that the end is near. But the truth is, just as the baby, you still don't know when it's going to be. Like, you still don't know if it's going to be now, or like, obviously we're talking a baby, like it could be days, but for Jesus it could be years, right? So it could happen now, could happen 10 years down the road, could happen 20 years down the road. We don't know when that's going to be, but we do see signs of it happening. Just like with the woman being pregnant, there's signs of it happening, but you don't know when the baby's going to come. And the same way, because we don't know when Jesus is actually going to come. That's the point Jesus is trying to make here. But what are these signs that we are to be looking out for? Right? So as it says, the first thing is that there will be many antichrists, many false prophets that will lead many astray. These false teachers, these false messiahs will cause betrayal among the church. They will cause disunity and chaos to the church to try to tear the church down. This is what their main goal is with the antichrists, right? And there's many of them. I know we think of like a lot of you has a one antichrist, but that's just texted. There's going to be many that will come. Many that will be there, and they will try to tear down the church. Second thing Jesus says, a sign will be wars and rumors of wars. It's a time of great fighting between the nations. There'll be one war, but then another war will pick up right after that. So there'll be war after war after war after war, and rumors of more wars happening. Then there'll be famines. Most of us know what a famine is: lack of food, earthquakes, natural disasters, things happening and getting worse and worse and worse as the time comes closer. Then you have persecution. Christians will be put to death just because they believe in Jesus, or thrown in prison. There'll be mass persecution among Christians. And then the sixth thing is the gospel will be proclaimed to the whole world. Okay? Now, I'm going to assume that many of us, when we read this text, at least you've heard it said before, you've heard it read always in the future. I always have. I've always read it that way. I've always understood this text this way. This is a future thing. Like when a new war breaks out, right? We always kind of think it's happening, right? Rumors of wars or a mass earthquake. Okay, well, the end is coming closer, and for sure, very well could be. Once again, this could be a dual fulfillment type thing here. We can read it like that. But why do we think this is future, though? This is what's interesting. When you read this text in context, you say, why do we think this is future? And this is mostly because we think it's the future. And as we go further into this text, we'll see why there could even be more reasons why. We're kind of reading piece by piece here. But as we go further, we'll see, okay, there's more reasons why we could think this might all be future, right? But why do we think some would say this passage or this part of this text would be future? It's because when it says the gospel will be proclaimed to the end of the world, and then the end will come. Which even now, I don't believe the gospel has been proclaimed to the end of the whole world. Like you can go on and find there's still unreached people groups out there, people that still have not heard the name of Jesus. There's still tribes in different parts of the world that don't know who Jesus is. So to say the gospel proclaimed to the whole world, we say, no. Most of the world, sure. 98, 97, 95%, maybe, I don't know what the percentage would be. Sure, like majority of the world at this point in time, the gospel is proclaimed. Like in every country, every country in the world, there is a group of Christians that meet regularly. Okay, they might be persecuted for sure, but there's still a group of Christians in every single country, in every single nation in the world right now. Okay, but to say the gospel is proclaimed to the end of the world, no, not everybody has heard the gospel. There's still some people out there that probably have not, okay? But here's the dilemma with thinking that's all future. We're wrestling through this together. I want to wrestle through this and just don't leave anything uncovered. That's my whole goal here. Remember the context. Remember the context at the very beginning, right? The temple is going to be destroyed. That's why this question came from the disciples. When are these things going to happen? When are these things going to happen, Jesus? When is the temple going to be destroyed? What is the sign of the end of the age? When are you coming? Like these are the questions they're asking. And the temple, the interesting part, was destroyed, just as Jesus said right here in Matthew 24. And it happened in 40 years, which we'll get to later in the Olivet Discourse. Is actually a prophecy Jesus actually makes. It's incredible, right? But Jesus said in 70 AD, the temple was destroyed, just as Jesus said it would. And this was, I would make a claim, it was the end of the Jewish age. It was the end of the age. It was the end of a Jewish age. And after that time, the church age did start. Like it was the end of the Jewish system as they knew it. Like it has not been the same since. It can't be. They don't have a temple. They have no place to sacrifice. Sure, they can sacrifice in other places, but they don't have a temple. Like that's the key center of their worship is the temple, right? That's where they offer the sacrifices. That's where the David Atonement happens. Everything happens in the temple, right? So for that not to be there, it's big, very big for that temple to be destroyed. So why do we? So is there a case that we could say that all 6 of these signs actually happened in the 40 years after Jesus made these claims, the preterist, one that would read this as history, would say, yes, all 6 things happened in those 40 years. And more importantly, they happened as birth pains. They happened right closer to the end. Like they had things kind of leading up to it, but most of it happened right at the end, right? So we go into this, right? Let's go into all 6 of these things. This video will be a little bit longer today. So there were many false prophets in the Antichrist. Like, first thing, right? In this time, Paul writes about it in many of his letters. There were many false prophets, many false teachers. Much of Paul's writings was dedicated to calling out the false teachers and false prophets of that time. Second thing is wars and rumors of wars. There were many wars in this time, right? Rome was active, especially inside of Jerusalem, in that area, in the Judea region. There was a lot of wars breaking out, especially from Rome, right? Rome was cracking down on the Judea region. They were actually marching in in this 40 years and overtaking many towns. And the last town they would overtake would be Jerusalem, because what's happening was the Jews were rising up, revolting against the Roman Empire, and so the Romans were cracking down on them, saying this isn't going to happen anymore. We're gonna squash these rebellious Jewish people. And so there was many wars, many fighting going on in this time. Famines. This is actually a very interesting thing. There's actually recorded history that many famines were actually happening during this time. In particular, when Rome surrounded Jerusalem, they actually burned all their crops to cut their food supplies. And so Josephus, a Jewish historian, actually records of the devastation this caused in Jerusalem, where women would actually, this is actually recorded by Josephus, that a woman actually ate her own infant child, boiled him in water, and absolutely grotesque things that were happening because of a famine that was breaking out. Earthquakes. Josephus again records that Josephus is a Jewish historian, by the way. So if I use his name, which a lot of the stuff we know outside of biblical context, the Bible, would be from Josephus. He was a Jewish historian that actually covered much of Jewish history, in particular this time period. So he's the fact we have his writing is gold, because it actually fills in a lot of these gaps. So, but Josephus actually records of a major earthquake happening 66 AD before the war began so bad that the priest had to empty the temple of all the things because the shattering so much. Fifth thing, persecution. I think most of us know this, right? As we know church history, there was much persecution. Arguably, probably one of the worst times, if not the worst time in church history. Christians were thrown into the Colosseum, eaten by lions. Christians impaled, put on stakes, burned alive, used as lanterns. Christians were crucified, and the streets were lined with them. So people would know, if you rebel against Rome, if you bow the knee to Christ, this will be you as well. And then the sixth thing. The sixth one was the gospel would be proclaimed to the ends of the world. Now, this is the one where we scratch our heads and we say, did this happen? And this is why many people believe there was a dual fulfillment going on. Like 70 AD, some would say that 70 AD was a foreshadow of the things to come that will be much worse. Okay, this is a very much a dispensational premillennialist view, where there will be a third temple, and when the third temple is built, this is going to happen again, right? But it's going to be far worse. This 70 AD was a foreshadow of what is to come, and it's going to come, as they would say, is after the gospel goes to the end of the earth. So the gospel is going to be proclaimed to the very ends of the earth, and once that happens, then the end will come, right? Then it will come. But others believe, the preterist view, they believe that what was meant by the end of the world was the Roman Empire. Since in a Jewish context, right, the world that they knew at that time was what they knew about. They didn't know about the Americas. They didn't know how large Africa was. They probably heard about India, but not how far it went, or even over into the east, into China and that area. They didn't know how big the world was. And so for them, the end of the world was going to Rome. Rome was a center of the world at that point. So if they could bring the gospel to the ends of the earth, to Rome, they've made it. And so that was like the view is like, the end of the world was maybe was the Roman Empire. And so if the gospel went to the end of the Roman Empire, then this was the end of the world. Possible for sure, right? As you're reading through it and you're studying through it, you say, okay, I could see how the preterists could come up with this. In the same way, I would see how the one that believes this is all future would say, yeah, because gospel, the end of the earth, aren't we kind of like going a little, stretching this a little too far, right? Trying to explain this away a little too much. Yeah, possible. Very well, very well. But I think there's still much to study here. So I want you to just kind of stay with me here as we're going to continue on. Hopefully next week I'll get another video out and we can go through this even deeper of these different, mostly the preterist and the futurist view, and how each one will explain this text in a different way. But all of this, once again, points to Christ. And that's what I want us to keep coming back to, is that all of this points to Christ and his lordship and his glory and his magnificence. So I don't want us to be distracted by this. Whatever happened, however it happens, what we can come back to is that Christ said, I'm coming back, right? And whether no matter what, it's in the future, right? But this is an amazing passage of scripture here in Matthew 24, where Jesus is, in a way, I think this is a way to comfort us, to say that the end is going to come, but I want to be with you throughout this entire thing. Yes, it might get really bad, but I will be with you. As he says in Matthew 28, I'll be with you to the very end of the age, right? He's with us to the very end of it all. He'll always will be with us. So that's a great hope we have for the future. Remind you, we have another study coming up in December, first Thursday in December 4th at 5:30, and it's an in-person study. The study starts at 6, so I invite you to join us for that. And if you have any questions, any ideas, or anything you want to add to this, leave it in the comments below. Come talk to me on Sunday, and look forward to doing this again next week. All right, see you guys.